This is the Job Stories Podcast, how people find work that matters.
It's only taken us like 50-something recordings of the Job Stories Podcast before I get my wife to come on. Big supporter of the show.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, Kiley, thanks for coming. Introduce yourself, and what is your career? What do you do?
My name is Kiley Dean, and I am a singer-songwriter.
How long have you been singing and songwriting?
25 years.
So I'm asking you all these questions like I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's for the audience.
Okay.
Totally.
Awesome.
Yeah, totally. So you said how many years? 25?
About 25 years.
Okay. How to get started for you?
Um,
Well, go back. So did you started singing at an early age?
Yeah. My mom would say I started singing like exceptionally well around like 3 or 4. Like I had my ear like kind of trained listening to pop 40 music. Like so she saw something in me. But I really started like wanting it to be what I did probably around middle school and high school. Sorry, let me turn that down.
It's a beep. Boop. On the Job Stories Podcast, we had a beep.
Music stories.
Yeah, this is the music edition of the Job Stories Podcast.
Is it?
That'll come later. We'll tease them later.
Huh.
Keep going. So in middle school.
Middle school, I like joined the choir where we got to wear really cute cummerbunds and like shiny bow ties. And I had my first solo. I sang Vision of Love by Mariah Carey. And that's when I kind of knew, although I had a microphone like this and I was like this, I had no stage presence whatsoever. But I knew that's what I wanted to do. The crowd was,
Going
oh my gosh,
wild.
Wild. And I think it was more about my cummerbund at that point, but still it gave me the confidence to move forward and sing in my choir at church. That's where I was discovered at an early age, about like my junior year in high school. And then I went on tour with Britney because I got found in my church, and that was my kind of like introduction into the world, as a tour bus with Britney Spears and her first tour.
So I know this, but you said you sang Vision of Love. Mariah Carey, your biggest inspiration?
Yes. Mariah Carey, she was, people would be like, hey, do you have a vocal coach? And I'd be like, no, well, yeah. And I would give my credit to Mariah because I would literally, back in the day, you'd have a cassette tape and you would put it in your cassette player and I would put on headphones. And I would literally sit up in my room for hours and practice her runs. Mm-hmm. And little did I know back then that was how you trained your ear. People, how do you become a singer? It's because it all starts in the ear. And if you can hear how you should sound and then you emulate what you hear, you're baking.
Okay, so maybe that's a touch of some sound advice for somebody that's maybe in middle school, mm-hmm. thinking they want to be a singer one day.
Sure, of course. Like also too, when people say, how do you meet people? It's all about saying yes to every single opportunity that comes your way. So when people would say, you want to sing at my wedding, you want to blah, 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 you want to sing in church. Had I said no to the solo that they said sing, I would have never had, Mark Goff. My voice would have never landed on Mark Goff's ears, who was the guy who introduced me to Britney.
Shout out to Mark Goff.
Shout out to Mark G.
Yeah, so ultimately, don't let the cummerbund stop you. Join the choir.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or push the choir out of the way, take that cummerbund off, and make
fair. Yeah.
Make fair. Room for
tips. Make double.
I don't know where I'm going with that one.
So anyway. Just a quick shout out to a former guest of the Job Stories Podcast, Christian Dominguez, who coincidentally also is very inspired by Mariah Carey.
He is.
Shout out to Christian Dominguez.
I think Dom can actually hit the opera notes.
Which notes? Like actual notes? Or we're
talking
about the same person right now?
Yeah, I know. I think he wants to. I think he tries in his car. He sent me plenty of videos of him doing the.
We'll send everybody a link to those clips of Dom singing Vision of Love.
Yes.
So you go on tour with Britney Spears in high school.
Yeah.
Okay, so you didn't finish your high school diploma.
Your mom did.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was stupid.
I'm pretty sure my mom cheated her way through high school.
Well, so did I. I treated my way up till junior year.
Mm.
I actually left high school. I left my senior year. I finished my junior, left my senior, senior year. And then I remember people being like, oh my gosh, don't you miss it? And I was like, no. I think the night of my prom, I was on Saturday Night Live with her. It was like,
Asked you if you missed high school?
well, did you miss like,
That's funny.
well, yeah, because the senior year and it's supposed to be really special. It was special, but I wasn't there.
Yeah, you were on SNL instead of the prom.
Yeah. Literally, we were on Saturday Night Live the night of my prom.
We can find some clips of that SNL too. We'll link it in the comments.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
All right, so Britney Spears to not finishing high school but doing crazy tours in SNL. What came after that?
I met my manager, Kyrie Brown. Shout out.
Shout out to Kyrie Brown.
He took me under his wing. Fast forward a couple years, I signed to Interscope with Beat Club with Timbaland under Jimmy Iovine's. I guess he was the head of Interscope then, and did an album with Timbaland that never saw the light of day, as many artists can kind of like understand and relate
Timbaland
to.
produced your first album.
Yeah,
for
Simple Girl.
For the audience here that doesn't know you're singing.
I literally reached out to Tim the other day. The name of the album was Simple Girl. And I said, hey, something about Simple Girl. He goes, I don't remember that song. I was like, the title of the album, you don't remember that song?
I mean, that is...
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
You need to send him a song. He'd remember the beats.
Probably. Yeah. It was 2004, so it was a minute ago.
Well, and...
Yeah. This year, it was 2003. This year's the 20-year anniversary. We should probably... Anniversary. We should probably do
record
something
the album
with
again.
it. We should. With crappier beats.
Dude. Well, that would be. Anything try to copy Timbaland is definitely going to be worse.
Sure.
Shout out to Timbaland, too. I saw him recently in Miami Web3. Weld Recruiting does a lot of Web3 stuff. So we went down to Art Basel, and Timbaland had a really cool panel. He's doing a ton of, like, metaverse stuff. But anyway, I digress. Yeah, him and a couple of folks are doing, like, they have a lot of, like, Web3 metaverse initiatives for music.
Good for him.
It's cool.
Smart.
It's a good panel, too. Okay, so you did a record with Timbaland that ultimately did not get released or publicized like you wanted to. So then what happened?
I asked for a release from Interscope, and they released me. And I think Jimmy Iovine was pretty gangster at that time, probably literally, but figuratively speaking on my end, so I don't get in trouble. Nobody really wanted to mess with me after Jimmy, so I never got picked up.
Nobody wanted to sign you?
No.
Is that how it works?
Yeah, you can.
Like if you get dropped, you kind of get signed by somebody else later?
Yeah, you can. And you can also, be signed to a person that people don't want to maybe be on the bad side of, or, they don't want to go after that person. Like if Jimmy Iovine can't break Kiley Dean, I'm not going to break Kiley Dean, or I can't break Kiley Dean. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Kind of.
The word we use is politics.
Politics. There it is. Yeah.
Definitely. But we don't talk
became-
about politics on this show.
No. It was I was 100% the tennis ball in a very politicky tennis match for sure.
Yeah, honestly,
I got screwed.
Honestly, very little that you probably felt like you can control.
Very little.
And I'm bringing this full circle because there's some of that from, we do a lot of entrepreneurial stuff. I mess that word up every time, but we do a lot of that on this show. We have a lot of entrepreneurs, and it feels like that, running your own business, that like there's a ton you can't control. But and there's highs and lows in managing the both. So at this particular point in your job story, shout out to Job Stories.
Job Stories.
This is a low.
Yeah.
You went from being signed, well, let's say SNL on prom night to being signed is awful. That's a high.
I mean, you had a baby that you created with a genius, not a physical baby, but like a baby that you created, and then you're the next thing. Stardom is literally you can touch it, and then politics ruin your entire career. It's pretty wild. And it broke me apart. I mean, I didn't want to keep, I don't know there's parts of myself that I learned in that point, like, okay, Kylie, got to keep going. And we did. We kept going, me and Kai, and, it was hard when every door you walked through, for whatever reason, didn't. And back in the day, you had to have there was no independent artist. There was no do-it-yourself. Being signed was an actual, like, it was a, what's the word where it's like, where it's rare?
Yeah.
It was a rare thing to be signed.
Rare's right. Yeah, no,
it was a rarity. So, like, you had to have record labels you didn't have social media, you didn't have those things. So, and it was small. It was a small world. Everybody knew each other. Everybody knew their artist. Everybody knew who was going to break. And I think, you know, my story was just a little sensitive because I had the best of the best team, and it still wasn't going to work in my favor.
I meant to back up too. So just real quick, because I think it is important for job stories outside of music. How did you meet Timbaland?
With Jay Brown and Kyrie in a
Shout out to Jay Brown.
Hi Jay Brown, and a hotel lobby on the. Remember when J-Lo wore that the dress that broke her?
How could I forget?
Yeah. Stupid.
Do I remember?
It was
Like,
that.
I actually don't remember,
I
but
know.
it's funny.
No, you do. It's the green dress that came up and la la la. It was that Grammy Awards. I performed with Britney in LA, and afterward, Jay asked me to come meet Tim in a lobby, and I sang for him in a hotel lobby at like 3 a.m. And at that point, game on.
Yeah, so the reason I wanted to touch on that to tie it into job stories is because like everything is so relational.
Everything is relational.
Like
it's all about who you know. Not anymore, I guess. But yeah, I guess.
I think.
Well, it is.
It
is.
I think so.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take it one step further. But even if you know those people, you still have to be a good human being, right? You too.
Not necessarily. There's some pretty shitty people in my industry.
There you go. Moving on. Okay. Totally, you can be, but I'm saying anything worthwhile, like building relationships and being a good person is a catalyst for like good things happening. And at that time, I understand that it didn't, like some things went south afterwards, but at that time, that's a huge deal.
What is?
You experienced a very large high that a very small population of the music, of folks that try to run down music get to do, meaning you met Timbaland, who is still one of the biggest producers ever, and especially at that time, probably the biggest producer in the world. And you got that through relationships. Because Jay and Kyrie
our brothers,
believed in you, loved you.
Yeah.
So it's like talent meets be a good person meets opportunity. Like it's kind of all of it in any industry, I feel like.
And Tim saw that in me. You know, I was only, 18 when I met him. And he saw this really sweet, new, fresh, innocent girl, and he respected that, and he loved that about me. And he's like, you're like my little sister. I want to look out for you. And so, yeah, that goodness and that purity of like decent human being. Yeah, of course, people, regardless of a shitty person or a good person, that's going to come through. People are going to be like, that's a good human, And it did work in my favor then, because I was hungry. I was young. I was all the things.
Super talented.
And very talented, but you can say that, can't you? Mm-hmm. I don't want to
Well, it matters. I think it does matter. I think, and then in our world, it's not you don't have to necessarily have all the skills right now, but at least be working towards them more in our world.
Sure.
But you were kind of an outlier because at that time you kind of already had it all.
This is true.
Standpoint.
Yeah, the one thing I never did was write. I never really liked songwriting because I was up against. I came up with Tim. I came up with Ryan Tedder. Working around, I came up with
Ryan Tedder.
Yeah, I came up with a Dream. I came up with Neo. All these people are like. They were in my circle, and then Dream not so much, but Neo and Ryan definitely, and to see how amazing they were at writing, I didn't really want to go there because I knew I could dominate
daunting.
singing. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And I am a perfectionist. It's unfortunate in some ways because when you're a perfectionist, you sometimes don't want to try. That's kind of where I don't want to try writing because he's so good. Why am I going to try?
Oh, I've talked to people for podcasting. I felt that way for our business, but if the unknown keeps you from trying big time,
then you're going to regret it.
Well, yeah. That's our last guest on the podcast kind of mentioned that. He's like, you have a choice one way or another, essentially, either try or don't, but live with it.
I heard one lady say, you can either stop trying what you love or never try what you love, and it'll always haunt you because I believe God puts a desire in your heart mine was at a very young age. I knew I wanted to be a singer. It's pretty cool that, I got to do it really young. I'm still doing it, although I'm kind of in like a weird space with it. It's still what I do. And when I talk about it, I'm emotional about it. Therefore, it sets my heart on fire still when I'm just talking about it. Mm-hmm. So that's there. And point of my story, she says, if you don't try or you put it in the back, there's this part in your brain that's been molded to want that, and you will regret giving up or not trying.
I actually disagree. No. Inside joke between spouses here. Okay. No, you're right. Roommates. Yeah, it's like roommates. We're roommates. It's like the Shawshank Redemption episode? Movie? Quote. Shawshank Redemption quote. What does he say? Get busy living or get busy dying. Mm-hmm. I don't know how that applies, but
I think
shout out to Shawshank Redemption.
Would you stop with the shout outs?
All right. So moving forward, so we left off at a very low point. You just got dropped and could not get signed again.
Nope.
What happened from there?
Because they're all fools.
Yeah.
They're all foolish mortals. Pretty much at that point of like, okay, I'm done. I was packing my suit.
Done like you're quitting.
I'm quitting. That's kind of where I am right now, honestly, if we're being honest. But we'll get there. I was done. I was living in LA. I couldn't afford to live there. Wasn't making money. So I said, I'm moving home. I'm going to go get a husband, going to get barefoot pregnant, sit on my porch and do life that way. Cool. Well, that's not what God had. My prayers were loud. I was like, if you want me to stay in this industry, God, you're going to have to drop something from the sky. And he did. And Kevin Antunes, shout out, called me 8 years. Now, Kevin Antunes he put together Britney's show. This was 8 years before, 9 years before. And he was NSYNC's MD, incredible musician, now incredible friend. I consider him a brother of mine. He's calling my manager, Kyrie, and he's like, what's up with Kiley? Madonna needs a background singer. Stat. I go in, I kill the audition, I land the Madonna gig. I'm her background singer for the next 10 years, 3 tours.
Never heard of her.
Yeah, she's up and coming.
Mm-hmm. All right, yeah, so that's another big high, I would say.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. It also was hard, if I'm being honest, and this is a stripped back interview. It was really hard for me. I was an artist.
Yeah.
And to go back 8 years later and stand in the background was really humbling. Granted, it was I wouldn't do it for probably anybody else, but it was definitely a humbling moment.
You mean at the time? It went on your radar to do it with anyone else? Yeah.
And so just like, well, am I moving backwards? And, I had to put that in perspective of who I was working with. Mm-hmm. So that once she walked in the room and the power and the just the energy she carried, I was like, okay, yeah, I'll do this. Mm-hmm. So in her little 5'2" frame, it's very powerful.
5'2"?
Something like that. She's tiny.
That's how tall I was going to be without the human growth hormone.
Yeah.
Shout out to HGH.
HGH.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, So you went from a low to really kind of another high.
Yeah. I mean, for like, as my grandmother would say, first class everything. My grandmother, when she was like on her deathbed, like not dying, but like pretty much, she took over my life and was saying that she was me. You were in the room. Mm-hmm. And that's what she said. First class everything. I traveled the world. But she was telling my story. It was wild to watch the brain do that.
Yeah. So you get this like really high profile first class job in terms of.
Keep me in line, Mace. I see what you're doing.
Keep
me on track.
In terms of money. Yes. In terms of the
everything.
travel.
Who I'm with.
Mm-hmm.
The shoulders you're rubbing. The people you're meeting. Yeah.
The catalyst for getting that Madonna job, just to bring the conversation from earlier full circle, was a relationship. From 8 years prior.
Yeah. And I remember, and here's the thing, Kevin, I'll never forget, it was the last show for Brit, and we were in catering, or it was something like that. There were tables, and he came up to me, and Kevin Antunes said to me at this time, he said, "You are such a good person. You're easy to work with, and I want you to know anytime there's ever an artist that needs a background singer, you're the first on my list. He said that in 2000. And sure enough, he lived up to his word 8 years later.
Unfortunately, he only works with like no-name artists, like NSYNC.
Yeah,
and
just tiny
Madonna.
artists. Yeah, no.
What is your coolest Madonna story? Not with her necessarily, but like on tour, like city, doesn't matter.
I mean,
you did like Yankee Stadium.
yeah,
You've
for
done
you
Madison.
that would be cool. For me,
Well,
I'm
that's,
like, meh.
well, that's what I'm prompting.
Well, I mean, like Oslo, Norway. It was 90,000 people.
a
It
lot.
was like I think the most ever gathering to see Madonna. It was, watching the fans run in and fall and trip and break bones was hilarious. Trying to get a good close seat. It wasn't funny, but it was. Not the breaking bones part, but
I think it is hilarious.
It was hilarious. Watching them run, trying to get close to the stage. It was hilarious. They would literally piss themselves because they wouldn't want to lose their spot by the stage. So they just pee on themselves.
People would do that at the Battle of the Bands for us at the Crawford County Fair. Shout out to Alma, Arkansas.
Give me my water right now. You're so stupid.
I can't reach it.
Can you not?
You're going to have to wait. A few more minutes. Okay, then Madonna, that backed you up to 2016, then what?
You
Then we got married.
had to take me away from the industry, knock me up, marry me. Not in that order, but still. And nobody called anymore because I had a baby and a husband.
And then what?
What?
And then what? We moved to Nashville.
You just want me to get emotional. I got cancer.
To be fair, we are currently recording.
I know that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I'll tell it for you. So in 2019, got diagnosed with breast cancer. So we're back to probably another low here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So quite the journey.
Well, it was crazy too because like that year Madonna went on tour, and this is the truth. She hired other girls, which is fine.
Well,
and
you know Munchie really well.
I love Munchie. Shout out to Munchie.
Yeah.
And I remember being like, okay, something great's going to happen this year. And it was cancer. And that was really hard. Because I'm not doing what I love. And not only am I not doing what I love, I'm fighting cancer. So it was like really hard. I've had to go through a lot of therapy for this. Obviously, I still can't get through an interview without talking about it. But yeah, it was a really shitty year. And then 2020 rolled around, and the world stopped, and that's when my chemo started, and almost lost my life 2 times to the chemo drugs because they're so intense. And it was losing a part of your body. It was so much. It was so much. And, we're good now. But, yeah, that low was very, very, very low. Didn't feel like there was a bottom.
Mm-hmm.
You just keep falling.
I think it is another theme for this podcast, like finding something you love and doing that. Because you talked about singing is what you love and what you've always loved, and not being able to do that is, or not being able to do it, but having not done it as much, mostly due to
moving to Nashville
diagnosis.
and like knowing nobody. I know nobody in the industry here. I don't know songwriters. I don't know really.
That's hyperbolic, by the way. We do know some.
We
people.
know some, yeah, but like not like I did in LA. I knew everybody.
Not as many relationships here as you had there.
Sure. And I'm having to make them on my own. With Kyrie, he had relationships and kind of brought me in, and it was just a thing. It was easier, I thought, meeting people there because of my team. But now I'm doing it on my own. I've been sick. I have a kid. All these other factors came in, and just recently I've really gotten like a lot healthier, mentally, physically. In a lot of ways. So it's like game on just as of late last year. Mm-hmm. There were things that had to get out of my way in my life that were holding me back. And, with those things gone and getting help for these emotions that clearly still show themselves very well, it makes it easier to take that next step to do whatever that next step is.
Yeah, I'm gonna tease our next step here in just a second, but
What is that? Sorry for crying.
I'm not gonna tease it before I tease it.
What are you
I'm
gonna
gonna do a
tease?
pre-tease. Doesn't make any sense. No. What would be a skill from a music standpoint? I'm leading the witness a little bit because you talked about not writing as much.
Mhm.
Nashville's a very writey town. Like
Yeah.
everybody here writes. It could be that. What's something else? I also know that you're a bomb vocal producer. So like,
So for me, I do write now. I didn't back then. I maybe should make that more clear. I didn't write back in the day because of the people that I was surrounded with were so good. And that was before they even really made it, got their first hit. So for me, I knew that was something I wanted to do. I wrote the last 2 EPs I did. I realized, okay, I actually have something in this pen. Might as well get the ink out. So I started that and just realized it's something I do love, and it's coupled with like my voice, and then also with writing. I love vocal production, and I've had a chance to vocal produce on my best friend's record, Matthew Morrison. That was a blast, and I think that's also
shout out to Matty Mo
and his house. Matty Fresh is what I think his
they call
nickname
him
is.
in the streets.
I think so, yes. If you don't know, now you know. He gave me a chance to vocal produce his last record, and it was so fun. And so we did it in a way that wasn't ideal. I think he was actually doing Broadway or somewhere. I couldn't be in the room with him, so we had to do it Zoom style. And I ended up just absolutely loving it, and then have been doing some of that here in Nashville. And this year I really want to dive in and be like, okay, I actually have a call with a friend who's very well known in the vocal production world after we do this interview.
I think it's cool, but I think it's cool because obviously you're good at arranging parts, harmonies, all that kind of stuff. But supporting, let's see a way to word this: getting the best out of someone else that maybe they didn't know was in there for themselves.
Yeah, there's a lot of people too that don't know they have. Sorry, these chairs are loud. There's people who have things in their voices that they don't realize they have. For instance, I'll use me. I had like that I had to get rid of. It was a habit that I created that I didn't hear. But when you had somebody else listening to you, they would point it out and they would break that habit because it would get annoying. Some people are pitchy, some people are whatever. We all have it. And when you have somebody like a Kook, right? He's very well known as a vocal producer. He got the best vocals out of Rihanna and made her sound the way she sounded on, what's that record that I love, the real soulful one. I don't know if we would have
Something
ever.
Loud, was it?
I don't remember.
Can't remember the name.
It was
I like that record.
it was very, very dope. And I was like,
Yeah,
wow.
that's my favorite
And my first question was, who got this sound out of her? And sure enough, Kook had. So it's this, it's this teamwork that you have with these artists. And she's been known, right? It's not just for new artists. It's for established artists as well, to have somebody just kind of navigate them and help them with a lead vocal.
Yeah, I like that. You're like serving it's one thing to do your own thing, right? But I think that's really cool. It's like serving someone else's thing. Has some unbelievable merit too for a lot of reasons.
Sure.
Using what I do best to like make you or help you get to your best is pretty cool.
And I remember like you saying, well, if you didn't sing or if you weren't an artist, what would you want to be? And I'm like looking at my qualifications and I'm like, God, who can say they have close to 30 years of session experience in a studio, behind a mic, how to work a mic, how to layer, how to,
Well, the 10,000 hours concept, you're well past that.
Sure. Right.
It's awesome. Okay, the thing I was going to tease is Kiley is the first edition of the Job Stories version of musicians that we're going to start talking to and their career stories. And I believe we're going to call it Music Stories. So thank you for being the Job Stories guest.